Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Coffee and Conversation. It is the Over It ladies joining you on Saturday mornings. Usually there's four, but Michelle is on vacation, a much deserved one. She's traveling back today, so she sends her love and regrets for not being with you all. But so the rest of us are holding down the fort. I'm Tara Setmayer. We've got Julie Roginsky and JoJoFromJerz, Joe Carducci, to hang out with us a little bit this morning. And we've decided to do these Saturday mornings because it's a cathartic community that we are building, going through this entire nightmare of an experience of this first month of the Trump administration. But there's a lot going on in our lives, and we are more than just political people. We talk politics, but we're also real people just like you guys. And this is our way of just kind of hanging out with our coffee on Saturdays with you guys, and to talk about what's gone on in the week. And we weave in some of the political stuff, but we do more of the heavy political things with culture on our Wednesday show, Over It. That's on Wednesdays at noon. So if you have not checked us out, please check us out on Wednesdays at noon, and like and subscribe on all of our socials, particularly on YouTube. We have our Mayday Media Network, which we're starting. So like and subscribe that. This is our first content, the Over It and Coffee and Conversations over there. We're going to build that out more. Please make sure you like and subscribe Seneca Project. Even though this isn't a Seneca Project direct deal, it's separate from that. But Michelle and I obviously were involved in that, and we're all in coalition together here in our efforts. And of course, make sure, if you have not, please like, subscribe, follow both Julie and JoJo. They have amazing Substacks. Julie's is Salty Politics. JoJo's is Are You Effing Kidding Me? Because of course. And my Substack is coming. We had a couple technical difficulties with the launch this week, but it's coming this next week. I promise it's coming. Uncompromised on Substack. You can go and subscribe now, but the content will come this week, I promise. So that's all of that. What kind of coffee do you have this morning, Julie, or is it tea?
Oh my God. I'm super lame, you guys. I drink decaf coffee. I have not had a real cup of caffeine in probably like 13 or 14 years since I started trying to get pregnant with my son and decided to become super healthy. I got rid of caffeine because I have trouble sleeping. I still have trouble sleeping, so it's not like the caffeine did it or didn't do anything to me. But now I'm so caffeine sensitive. If I have like a sip of it, I'll be up for 3 days. So this is pure decaf coffee, decaf's finest. By the way, this is an Old Jersey panel today, which we love.
It is.
We love Michelle, but could we do a shout out? Although Joe is still the only person living in Jersey on this panel.
But none of us are in New Jersey at the moment, which is crazy.
True. That's true. But you can take the girl out of the Jerz, but you can never take the Jerz out of the girl. So Tara and I still are Jersey girls
through and through.
And know that it's the greatest state in the nation, even though we don't live there anymore. And anybody who's here from any other part of the country, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you don't have the pleasure of being Jersey girl. We are. But it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. I should go throw my Jersey girl hat on. I have it. It's over there. I should put that on today.
I feel like I'm woefully like understocked when it comes to like Jersey girl stuff. Like I'll have a lot of stuff with expletives on it, but like Jersey representing, I'm like, I need more stuff. Maybe if they just walk around giving people a finger, randomly, and it kind of speaks for itself. But
punching people that call it pork roll as opposed to Taylor ham. Just go up.
Right. I have a T-shirt with that. Mary
P. Action Park was a rite of passage. It's such
a rite of
passage. I don't know if anybody ever
worked there. My sister worked
there. She survived?
She did. He did, but she saw some shit, ladies. Oh my God. So I grew up very close to Action Park. I grew up in Sussex County, and I actually tried to be a lifeguard, but they're not a great idea. In the same wave pool where they were doing a lifeguard training, I think over a dead body many years prior or before, I forget.
Have you seen the documentary? There's a documentary about it. It's insane.
It's a little too close to home because like these are things that like we knew growing up, these stories. Like, I mean, that slide was legit where people would like in this like cliff section, and
I almost died on that thing. I have a story about that cliff thing.
Okay,
so
are you serious?
That Tarzan swing, I came this close to my head, the back of my head when I was like 10 on the metal dock. And literally my mom says to this day, she has flashbacks about watching like my life. Like it was this close. And nevertheless, it was the best day of my life because I loved Action Park. So
like that place, it was a gauntlet. If you survived without a scar, it was remarkable. I mean, the Alpine slide alone. Yeah. But yeah, some guy died mid-fall. He had a heart attack mid-fall. Fell into the water. And then went straight down to the bottom on my sister's watch. Like he did not make it, sadly. But
we used to go to Action Park all the time too when I was a kid. The Alpine slide was the best. I remember we used to have to wear proper clothes in case you wiped out, because if not, you get all those burns, right? The road burns from them. Brutal. And you would always know in the summer when you would see your friends have one of those burns that like, oh, you busted your ass on the Alpine slide, didn't you? Were you at Action Park? And yeah, it was. We used to love it. And the water was so cold because it came from the mountain. Remember, it was like part of like the mountain spring or whatever that's over there. And the water used to be ice cold.
Yeah.
I know. But yes, well, reminiscing about our Jersey lives, the Action Park is a rite of passage for sure, as is going down the shore, which is also our favorite pastimes as Jersey girls in the summer, which we still do. And I still do to this day because I need it. What's in I have my mug today. I'm feeling a little saucy. My mug says, I wish you were fluent in shutting the fuck up. And this is my, feeling right now toward all of the MAGA people who are telling us to cry harder or to, get over ourselves when we're very upset about the fact that like, oh, I don't know, a whack job like Kash Patel is now running the FBI and Trump has just fired the whole Joint Chiefs and, we're just fine with that. We're okay with that. So no, we're not okay with that. And this is my Jersey way of telling them they can all go kiss my ass. So because we will not.
Including some people on this chat who apparently showed up just to talk shit, which by the way, you're welcome. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us, reviews.
Boosting the algorithm. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Nothing owns me harder than you showing up to angry jerk off to my face on a Saturday morning. Ouch! Rage jerk.
Hey, Stefan, let me do a shout out back to Slava Ukraini is absolutely right. So for Stefan here, Slava Ukraini.
Yes.
I mean,
I say that with my Russian accent, but trust me, my heart is with Ukraine, and thank you for pointing that out because what happened
can we just unpack for 1 second the fact that it feels like it is really the United States and Vladimir Putin against the rest of the world right now. That's what it fucking feels like. Like I know. Honestly, even the New York Post is like, this is a dictator, Donald, and it's a picture of Putin. Like that's how far afield we have gone. We've gone from like Russia hoax to Zelensky is a dictator, but you wouldn't even answer the question when asked about Putin. This is where we are now, and I am so scared for all of Ukraine. I am so scared for those people. I'm scared for all of Europe. Like this is where we are now. It's absolutely insane.
Listen, between that and I worked for a former Reagan speechwriter. Okay, like the importance of our position in the world as the shining city on the hill, and Reagan standing up to Gorbachev, and we all grew up in the 80s with our pride, and Rocky against what's his name in the Rocky movies, like, and to see all of that just thrown out the window it's like soul crushing, because it's so much bigger than just, it's just this random country on a map that most people can't find, including our own president. And who cares what they're doing over there? And it's America first. No, what the Ukrainians are doing is a symbolism. It's a larger microcosm of the fight for freedom and democracy, particularly in Europe, and our role in that. And to watch us throw away our standing as a superpower in the world, not only with Donald Trump literally in a fucking bromance with Vladimir Putin, and
talk about a mandate,
right. and to say for what, and and then now our allies are looking at us like we can't depend on the United States anymore. And then USAID being blown up. So that's destroying our soft power, where we had influence around the world, the goodwill of the Americans, where you could always depend on the Americans. It's literally blowing up an 80-year alliance that we've had around the world with, and people are just like, so what? Like, no. And then you've got CPAC this week. For those, who don't know, when you were a Republican, CPAC was a rite of passage, okay? I used to go to CPAC every year. It used to always be a little kooky, but it was still acceptable. It was a mainstream thing. And like, I used to love going to CPAC. I've spoken on panels at CPAC. And then CPAC went off the deep end. It became a MAGA cult grifting operation. And it's just gotten worse and worse. Like, it's physically not safe for me to ever go there again. I wouldn't want to, but like, I couldn't even step foot there.
Well, now they're juggling chainsaws.
Yeah, they're juggling chainsaws and throwing up Nazi salutes.
Let me tell you something about our standing in the world, and I'm going to get a little personal here. And I think I've talked about this before, but maybe not on Saturday mornings because it's a little bit of a heavy topic. So I think some people might know I was born in the former Soviet Union, and I was born in Moscow. So like Russia proper, not Ukraine, other places, but in what was then Russia and what is now Russia as well. And my family was lucky enough, my parents and I were lucky enough to get out in 1980 before Reagan became president. But my grandparents, who actually had raised me, I lived with them when I was little, and really were like parents to me, were not allowed to leave with us. And the reason they weren't allowed to leave with us is because my grandfather, 30 years earlier in the 1950s, had worked on the first Sputnik. And allegedly, according to the communist regime, he knew military secrets. He didn't know any military secrets because that was 30 years earlier and he'd been out of it for a long time. But this was their way of separating families. If you talk about family separation, this was their way of saying, if you want to leave, fine, but you will be abandoning your very elderly parents on their own, and they will be shunned and they will be just enemies of the state. And that's what happened. And my grandparents could not get out for 10 years. And every single birthday I had, whenever I blow out the candles, I blow them out. And my only wish when I was 8, 9, 10, other people would wish for Barbies. I'd wish for my grandparents to ever see them again. I was told I'd never see them again. And the trauma of that, I think I still haven't gotten over. So this is not a therapy session, I promise. But what this is a reminder of who Vladimir Putin is. Because when that was going on, he was a KGB agent. And those were the people who were oppressing people like my family. When my grandparents finally were allowed to leave in 1990, when Glasnost had happened, and finally they were in their late 70s at that point, when they got to the airport with nothing but the clothes on their back, they were tortured by the Soviet regime, basically saying, you can't leave, just to fuck with them, no other reason. And my grandfather got to Austria, which is where the plane took them, and had a heart attack immediately. Oh. He survived, but nevertheless, that's who we're dealing with. That's who we're dealing with. I love this country like only an immigrant can, because I've seen the alternative. And the part that kills me, that I truly, and Tara and Joe know this because we're in a chat, I couldn't talk for the first few days. I mean, I finally wrote a Substack, just that was like a creed occur, I don't know how else to describe it, just this complete and utter meltdown column about this. But for the first 24 hours, I was just speechless, because we are now on the side of the villains. We came to this country because it was a beacon of democracy, because it was the place that people like us look to as the beacon of freedom for the rest of the world, the inspiration for the rest of the world. And the shock, I guess I'm not shocked, but the horror that I feel of watching the United States, this country that I love, side with the people who oppressed my family, and not just my family, but oppressed millions upon millions of their own people, of their neighbors, if they could, of all of Europe. I mean, God, if Putin had his way, he wouldn't just stop at Ukraine. And, that's right. And that's who we're siding with. I mean, that's who we're with. I just, it's
unfathomable.
Yeah. And there are people here I see from Germany. There are people in this chat from the UK. I want you to know that's him.
Yeah.
I believe strongly the American people are not represented by him. When they voted for him, this is not what they voted for.
No.
I want you to know that.
Not the majority. Not the majority. There are some. right? We have to acknowledge there's probably about 30 to 35% of this country that is perfectly okay with this. And that, that's that. But they're not the majority. We are the majority. And the problem is that so many people have become apathetic. Apathy is dangerous because this is what happens when people put their heads in the sand, they throw their hands up and go, oh, they're both the same. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. No, this is what happens. So that's why we are doing what we're doing. It's to inform people, inspire them, galvanize them, because we're seeing already, to Julie's point, like most Americans didn't vote for this. And the polling is starting to show that now. And unfortunately, people are stubborn and they don't change until they pay enough of a price. And we, on the right side of this, have been screaming, sounding the alarms for years to try to avoid the pain this country is about to go through, and the rest of the world, unfortunately, because of it. We've been trying to avoid it, but it's going to get worse before it gets better, but there is still an opportunity for it to get better as long as the good side does what we need to do. And it's not easy. Go ahead, Joe.
No. And what we've seen, to your point about the polling, but also these town halls in ruby red districts, friends, as we all saw, where people are saying, I did not vote for a tyrant. What is going on? Why does he have access to this? I did not vote for Elon Musk to have my social security numbers. How are you going to explain this? How are you going to stop this? These are people who voted for Trump, and they are saying we did not vote for this. And I don't know about you guys, but every time I say something like, oh, they can defund, research for childhood cancer, but Elon Musk can make $8 million a day. And then the comments are cry harder, America first.
Right.
This is what we voted for. And I know, as well as you know, that is a lie. You're lying to me, you're lying to Tara, to Julie, you're lying to yourselves, because in those dark recesses of whatever part of your brain still has a firing fucking synapse that this is scary and this is bad. But you have never walked one fucking second in the shoes of someone who has perspective that isn't this bubble of a life that you've been able to live. And you're starting to understand it. And the reason there's a difference between Julie and Tara and me and a whole bunch of other folks who are like, I saw this coming, is because we have faced monsters, because our families have come here from other places. My father came here from Lebanon as a teenager, seeking that shining city on a hill. I talk about this a lot. He spent 50 years of his life working for the Department of Defense to repay this country for what this country provided him. But he left something, seeking something that was better. And that American dream has not gone away. It still exists, even though all of you, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and all the oligarchs would very much like us to believe that the American spirit is no longer. That's not true. And so for all of you in the comments, like, hey, he's our president, he's your president, Joe, he's your president too. So when you don't have workplace protections anymore and you're working 60 hours a week and getting paid for 40 and barely making it by on that, and you have no health care and your kids have no school and your wife has no reproductive care, I will not be crying harder. You'll be paying $20 for eggs if you can find them. And he's your president too. But guess what? We have a big enough tent and big enough hearts that if you wake up one day and have an epiphany that this is not in fact what you voted for, we will welcome you with open arms into what is the resistance, which is actually the majority of Americans who did not vote for Donald Trump. So that's me on my soapbox, because I see lots of comments. Oh, he's your president, cry harder. Okay, let's check in on cry harder when you don't have any Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, healthcare, public education, roads that work, and bridges that don't fall, and planes that don't fall out of the sky. You'll be the one crying harder. But in the meantime, I will still welcome you.
Let me just back up
to that.
Yeah, let me just back up something that JoJo said, not because it's coming from Joe, but because it's coming from two guys named Tony Fabrizio and Bob Ward. For people who don't know, those are Donald Trump's pollsters, okay?
Yes.
They are as MAGA as it gets. They were the strategists on Trump's campaign. So it's not us crying harder, it's them crying harder. And they released a poll, released a memo. And actually, I'm shocked, but not surprised about their release of this memo. The shock is that they would actually publicly do this to their own client, Donald Trump. I'm not surprised about the contents of this. They polled.
This is them crying. This is the only way they can talk to him, because Trump doesn't listen until they have to go. So that's how you know it's a 911 on their part.
So here's the 911, okay? February 14th, 2025. This is a memo from them. I will post it on my Substack tomorrow, but just here's a little preview. They did a poll. They polled swing districts, the kinds of districts that will make or break a Republican majority in the House next year. And this is what they found, okay? How worried are you about your personal financial situation? All voters, 59%. Trump voters, that's you guys in the chat who are telling us to cry harder, 53%, a majority view. Swing voters, 61%. Now, which of the following worries you the most? Cost of living. Cost of living, by far more than anybody else, for everybody, including Trump voters. 69% of all voters are concerned about their ability to pay for groceries. 65% of Trump voters, 72% of swing voters. In the swing districts, Democrats right now are +5, according to them. That means that if the election were held today, Democrats would win by 5 points. I want people to understand that it's not us crying harder. It's actually you guys crying harder, because you are the ones, not the people in this chat. I get that you're drinking the Kool-Aid so much that Donald Trump literally can shoot you and your mother avenue and you'll still be okay with it. But voters, people who voted for him, who are not completely gone Looney Tunes, they're the ones saying they're fed up with this shit. And P.S., it's been a month. It's been a month. And they're concerned because Donald Trump on August 15th of last year said that he will bring down the price of groceries on day one.
Right.
Day one. Don't tell us to give him a month or 6 months. He said on day one. And he's not
was higher since the last 7 months of Biden's presidency.
Yeah. So the problem here is, my friends, that it's not us crying harder. We knew this. Like, nobody here is crying. We're sitting back and saying, you know, you fucked around. You found out. Sorry, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
But
sorry, Julie's dad.
Sorry. My dad keeps telling me to stop cursing on these shows. I'll do my best. But there's only so much I can do, Dad. Sorry. But the problem is that it's you who are beginning to cry harder, because you are starting to realize, according to Donald Trump's own pollsters, that you've been fucking owned.
Yes. Yes. No, you're 100% right. And I think that, you know, it's as much as we don't want to be like, we told you so, idiots, but it's like, at the same time, it breaks our heart. Like, we don't want to see our fellow Americans suffer. Okay. Like, that's not the motivation for us. The other side, with the whole chaos is the point, the cruelty is the point. Yeah, let's own the libs, cry harder, you snowflakes, whatever the dumb shit that they say. Like, that's not where we come from. We're coming from, like, we're trying to achieve a more perfect union here, right? Mm-hmm. We embrace the people. We embrace the diversity. Look at the diversity on this panel. And it's all of us. Like, Julie's story about her family coming here, I was choking up, and I've heard part of that story before. I didn't know the part about her grandparents, but like, that's why we got into this, is to keep our country welcoming to people like Julie and her family and others. And that's part of the story of our great country. Unless you're a Native American, everybody came from somewhere else.
And he's trying to take their birthright citizenship away right now, by the way.
Exactly. Like, what are we doing? Like, Michelle, who's not here now, but Michelle's family goes all the way back to fighting in the Revolutionary War. Like, that's how far back Michelle's family goes. She's probably the oldest American out of all of us here, right? My family on both sides came from somewhere else. In like on my father's side, they escaped the revolution, the Guatemalan Revolution in the 50s, and came here as political refugees. My great-grandparents came from Germany. I found out, I've told this story before, I found out when my grandfather was like 87, he died at 90, that apparently my great-grandparents were German Jews. We had no idea. He just kind of said it casually, because I didn't grow up, Jewish, and my grandfather never said anything about it. And until one day we were home in our house in Jersey, in Paramus, and he was talking about going to how his dad would go to synagogue every Saturday in Patterson. And we were like, wait, what? What? What was that, Gramps? And I regret that, because now everybody on that side of the family is gone. And I regret not getting more information about that. But who knew? But then we knew the stories that my great grandmother, before my grandfather was born, he was born here, but his siblings were born in Germany. He was the youngest. He was the bubby. He was the youngest. But his brother was being recruited by what would turn into Hitler's SS. But after Hitler was trying to reconstitute in the 20s, and after he gotten arrested and all that, and then they were trying to kind of build it up again, they were trying to recruit my grandfather's brother. He was 10. And that's when my great grandparents were like, we're out. And they came in the 1924. And one year I went to the Ellis Island Foundation, where if anyone has not done this, you can go to the Ellis Island Foundation database and look and see if your family has come through Ellis Island. Everyone that came through, for the most part, had to sign a log, and they have it all. They have archives. And I found my Setmayer family came through, what boat they came through on the Bremen, what day they came through, their actual signature, and my great grandmother next to the names. That was incredible to see. That's our American story. And you can buy the replicas of that. There's kind of a joke. My great grandfather's name isn't there. And there was always kind of a rumor that he might've jumped ship. Because that's why, whatever. But I'm just saying, we all have these stories that's what our passion for trying to do what's right comes from, what America represents. And to see other people try to turn this into some kind of fascist, exclusionary, authoritarian nightmare, that is so fascist, un-American, right? It's so un-American. And so, we didn't want to be this heavy on a Saturday morning. Normally we're not, but it's just, there's so much has happened this week that, again, we try to come together and we talk about it, because this is what we go through, and other people go through something similar. You're not alone. You're not alone.
And I think
go to Ellis Island and go check out your parents and see if your family came through that Ellis Island.
Right, do that. Definitely do that. People are being gaslit into believing that they're alone, that they're the minority, that they're not experiencing what they're experiencing and feeling what they're feeling. That's the crazy part, right? That's part of how this fascist playbook works, is that everyone's separated from each other and they're out there in the darkness by themselves and you're like, well, maybe everybody else is all on board with this. That's not true. We have not forgotten who we are. We will only forget who we are if they can keep us apart, if they can divide us, if they can normalize everything, if they can make us apathetic. That is how they will win. But at the end of the day, that requires them really trampling on all of us. But that's why we win when we come together and we talk to each other and we see each other and we hold each other up, and we are that tapestry that Jimmy Carter talked about. God rest in peace, Jimmy Carter. I'm sorry that you're not here, but I'm glad you're not here to see this. But that tapestry is who we are. It is, yes, both our tragedy and our beauty, because it has caused this country great pain. But through that pain has come progress. And every time we make a step forward, we've taken some back. But ultimately, we keep moving in the right direction. And what we have to remember is that is the beauty of this little experiment. We are the beauty of this little experiment. When I see those town halls and I see those folks standing up and saying, no, that reminds me, and it reminds them, and it reminds everyone of we, the people, the power that still rests in our hands, that they want us to forget. They want us to be demoralized. They want us to be disheartened. They want us to be divided. Those are the ways that they take over. We can't let them. And these kind of calls, and I agree, on a Saturday morning, normally, we're all a little bit more just talking about the fact that I had to fly and I fucking hate flying, and I had 2 glasses of wine on the plane because I was like, I don't like this, and I don't like planes flying out of the sky. But
I miss Saturday morning cartoons. Remember those Saturday mornings where you could just eat our cereal, read the cereal box, and watch cartoons. A Fraggle Rock thing popped up on my Facebook yesterday, and my husband and I were singing the freaking Fraggle Rock song. Fraggle Rock, right? We were like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But anyway, I miss those Saturdays.
What you also do? Remember when they used to have I'm a bill on Capitol Hill? Maybe we should send that to our representatives on Capitol Hill, because they forgot about the separation of powers. There's a whole thing about separation of powers they used to do on the cartoons. They used to teach people about democracy, and without any kind of political partisanship, but literally this is how I'm a bill, I live in Capitol Hill, or this is the separation of powers, or conjunction. What's your function?
Yep.
All of this stuff, which I could still, remember.
Me too.
And Super Friends, which for some reason had this very I love Super. That was my things. I love the Super Friends. My parents would sleep in and I would wake up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. to watch Super Friends.
Love it.
Yep. And I had little Wonder Woman bracelets that I would make out of tinfoil.
Oh, I had Wonder Woman underoos, and I loved those.
Those were called Wonderoos. If they ever Wonder Woman underoos.
I had days of the week.
Yes.
You did?
Yes. No, I'm obsessed with Wonder Woman. I have Wonder Woman, all the Wonder Woman things in my office. My husband had a friend of ours who does sketches make me this really awesome Wonder Woman like comic cover with me as a member of Congress in Capitol Hill and Wonder Woman. When we moved, I don't know what happened to it and I need to find it. But like even my mom made this really amazing. My mom makes decorative bottles.
Oh, wow.
She made this for me for Wonder Woman. Like, no, I'm obsessed with Wonder Woman. Like I am obsessed with Wonder Woman and have been since I was 6 years old. And when I was like going to first grade, I actually remember when we were kids, you used to be told that if you broke a wishbone and you got the bigger side, your wish would come true.
I still tell my kids that.
Okay. So when I was like 5 or 6, I did that at dinner and I wished that I would get Wonder Woman powers. And the next day I went to school and remember the cloakrooms in our Jersey classrooms? They had like cloakrooms in the back.
Yeah.
I went to the back cloakroom and spun around expecting to turn into Wonder Woman.
Well,
and
it actually did happen, Tara. It did happen. Look at you now.
Thank you.
I used to pray to God every night, and I'm not kidding, and I'm not even religious. I used to pray to God every night that I could go back and be Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh!
And in retrospect, I'm thinking, really, do I want to live like someplace with like cholera and like
water, like smallpox?
My version of Little House on the Prairie. And then the best part. Here's the best part. I was obsessed with the TV. This is actually a funny story. I was obsessed with the TV show, like obsessed. And then the last season, and I used to also pray to God that Michael Landon would come, and I was living in the Bronx at the time, would come to the Bronx and discover me and take me to Hollywood and cast me on Little House on the Prairie. And the very last season of Little House on the Prairie, they actually brought in Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jason Bateman was on there. I'm a huge fan. I love him.
Yes, and who played this kid whose name I can't remember, and his twin sister, Cassandra. And I was like, oh my God, this fucking Cassandra, that's me. That should have been me. Like, who is this?
Oh, that's so funny.
Wait, that's better. Her name was Missy, Missy Francis. And I was like, I hate Missy Francis. Missy Francis took the job. Like, that should have been me. And for like years, I was like, fuck Missy Francis. Fast forward 30 years later, and I was working at Fox. A new anchor shows up at Fox named Melissa Francis.
No way.
No
way.
Shut up.
And I literally was like, were you? And she's like, yeah, that was me. I was like,
oh my God.
You're like, I hated you.
Oh my God. Did she take her job at Fox?
I said to her, I said to her, I'm like, you don't understand, Melissa. I'm like, I hate it. So she was cracking up. She then wrote a book about her life and her time in Little House on the Prairie, which I, of course, devoured, which, by the way, P.S., I no longer wanted to be Missy Francis after reading that book. But, like, it was
wow.
Talk about, like, a random story. Yeah.
That is what a full circle moment that is.
As long as you
oh, my God.
Because then it'd be like,
right? Then even like, okay, enough with this chick.
She was kind of bought into the Fox thing, but that's not relevant to the story. Nevertheless, she was, I can't believe I actually arch nemesis, and she and I got along really well, and she was great. But yeah,
that is a great story. And I'll say, even though you didn't end up being actually Wonder Woman, and Julie, you didn't end up on Little House on the Prairie, I was obsessed with Land of the Lost, and at least Marjorie Taylor Greene did grow up to be Chaka. So at least there's that.
Oh my God, Joe.
Sorry.
Oh my God. No, that is hilarious. That is hilarious. There is no shortage of jokes for that horrible person. I want to address something that Carol Glynn just said about the Statue of Liberty. And I want her to know that for folks, when you subscribe to my Substack, my logo is in fact a warrior Lady Liberty for all the reasons. And so thank you for that, Carol, because yes, I was looking for what could symbolize what represented me and what I'm trying to put forth in my Substack and what I'm going to offer. And we were talking about it. Joe has been really awesome in helping me develop it because she's awesome on Substack too. And Julie has her Substacks are so informative and just heartfelt. And I'm like, they're like, get your ass on Substack. So I was like, all right. But I'm like, I need some kind of cool. It was actually Julie's freaking Salty Politics cool Substack that I was like, this really pops. I'm like, I need something that pops. And so the Lady Liberty, the twist on Lady Liberty and all of what she represents as a warrior.
I always cry when I think about the inscription at the bottom. Give me your tired, your poor. Like I know it by heart. And I Statue of Liberty when he was maybe, because if you live in New York, it's not that hard. I took him when maybe he was like 7 or 5 or something, a long time ago. And I started telling him what the description was, and I started crying. And he was like, "Are you okay?" Like, this poor kid is like, "Why are you crying?" And I just started crying because, and this was during the first Trump administration. And I just was like, I just can't believe this is what we're living in. Like, we have the Statue of Liberty that is telling us to give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. And this guy is saying, actually, everybody get out unless you're a former Afrikaner or an Afrikaner from South Africa, and you've been oppressed because you're white in South Africa.
Yeah.
It's South Africa. Unbelievable. Yeah. Like, that's what we've got a bunch of techno bros from South Africa that are undermining our democracy and using pulling the levers of power so that they can live in this weirdo techno feudalism thing. I just did, and I'm probably going to write more about this eventually, but like Michelle and I just did on our show, The Stakes, on Thursday for Seneca Project. We talked about this guy, Curtis Jarvin, who I had no idea about, really. This is like out there in open, it's open source. It's been out there under our noses. And we always knew that like tech bros were kind of this weird under like shadow world that they believe in, that they think they should run the world. But I had no idea how deep this goes. And this guy, Curtis Jarvin, is like the political guru wacko that Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen and this PayPal mafia group, Elon, all of them, and JD Vance, who's an acolyte of Peter Thiel's. Peter Thiel has bankrolled JD Vance's entire career, which is a weirdo thing in and of itself, but we won't go there. It's Saturday morning. But I encourage people to, of course, watch The Stakes, but Google Curtis Jarvin. This guy is a danger to our entire democracy here. He thinks that we should, that the American people need to, quote, get over their dictator phobia. And he thinks that we should all be basically slaves to tech CEOs who run little network states instead of our actual states. And that there shouldn't be democracy because those of us who aren't tech geniuses are useless. And the ones that we can't use, that aren't smart enough to like make computers or code or whatever the fuck, that the rest of us should be slave labor to them. And then those who aren't even good at that, well, you could always dissolve them and they could become biofuel to use for machines and things like that. I'm not making this up. This is who this guy is. Like, he is yes, it is a Soylent Green, like a 21st century version of this. This is a guy who is a political guru to Peter Thiel, JD Vance, Elon, and those guys. And this is also making sense to me now, why they're trying to decapitate our government, why they're trying to upset all of our systems, why, like, Trump is a puppet. Yeah. Even Elon is a clown to them. Yeah. They are using this, and I was like, holy shit. And they want to start these like little, they call them network states, and they want to start these where they have their own little like monarchs that run them. And they would like that's what the obsession with Greenland is about. I had no idea. I'm like, what the hell is the obsession with Greenland? It's part of this weirdo tech bro cult thing where they want to start repopulating areas and taking over land. And they see Greenland as one of those places. Politico wrote about this. This is not some like weird conspiracy theory rabbit hole. It is, these are legit news sources. The New Republic, Yahoo, Vanity Fair, Politico. Google Curtis Jarvin, folks. I'm telling you, it'll make a lot more sense what we're going through. And it's kind of insidious and horrible, but.
You guys, sorry, but everything that Tara just said, right? They want to put people in Greenland because they need a place for people to live. You know what the Nazis used to call that? Lebensraum. That's what they assumed Eastern Europe was going to be. They're going to get rid of all the Slavs or make the Slavs the slaves. And they were going to put little, they needed more living space for real Germans. They were going to put them in Eastern Europe. That was the purpose of the conquest of Eastern Europe. When you're talking about using some people for biofuel because they're not really human, that's what they did to the Jews and the Gypsies and the Roma. Sorry, I shouldn't call them Gypsies anymore. The Roma. The point is, it's the same thing. Like, it's not, this is nothing new under the sun. But think back to what happened in 1933 and how quickly it all collapsed. And then understand that when you tell us to cry harder, We're not crying. We're angry and we're energized, and we're not letting it happen because it's not so long ago that we've all had grandparents who lived through it. It's not some distant memory that happened in the Middle Ages that none of us knows about, right? My grandfather fought on the Eastern Front. My grandmother was in the evacuation. My father was born as they were fleeing the Nazis east. So I say that because there are people in my direct family who told me stories about what was happening only 85 years ago. And that's the case for, I'm positive for all of your grandparents too. A lot of them probably fought either in Europe or in Japan.
Mine did.
Right? Yeah. So, and Joe, your father is from Lebanon. He could tell horrible stories, I'm sure, could have told horrible stories about the sectarian strife that was going on in Lebanon, where people were murdering each other because they were either not the same sect as Muslims, or they were Christians, and there was or Jews or Druze. I mean, there was Lebanon, same thing, right? So no matter where you come from, we all have family that could tell us within 1 or 2 generations of what was going on. And so for Tara to warn about Yarvin, that's not like, oh, isn't that a crazy kook and how crazy is this? This is a guy who all of these Trump doesn't, I don't know what Trump knows, but my personal belief is
he's not in prison.
JD Vance was put there for a reason.
Oh yeah,
100%. Oh yeah, that is the point, because JD Vance, right? JD, I do this other thing called the Setmayer sound off for my good friend Don Lemon on his channel, and I was struggling with what I wanted my sound off to be this week. And Michelle, God bless her, she was the one who pointed out the Curtis Yarvin thing, because we went for Seneca over the summer. We did a thing about Peter Thiel and JD Vance, and kind of warning people about JD Vance and how he really isn't his own guy and struggles with identity in more than one way. But like, he's kind of being pulled, strings are being pulled from the tech world there. Like, you guys, he grew up in Appalachia. Like, don't be fooled by who this guy is. He's been turned into this by Peter Thiel and those people. But we didn't know how deep it went. And I had never heard of Curtis Yarvin, and Michelle hadn't either until this week. And in my sound off, I point this out. I'm like, listen, Trump didn't get these ideas from nowhere. Like, he's an imbecile on these things. He's an ignoramus. He's a very good marketer and a good bullshitter. He's not an intellectual. He's not into political philosophy. He's just doing that. They know how to stroke him to get him to do what they want. He's a Manchurian. I know, if they could find it. That they know. They just, they're trying to use him as a Manchurian candidate here and just do what they want. But there's a much deeper, darker, more sinister play here with JD Vance being installed. Peter Thiel, and is not only did he resurrect JD Vance's political career, because he was losing in the primary in Ohio until Peter Thiel came in, gave him $15 million, and he's the one who convinced Trump to endorse him. Yeah. And then it was Peter Thiel who convinced Trump to pick him as vice president. And you know who else? Don Jr. is also an ass kisser of Peter Thiel. So these tech bro billionaires are pulling the strings, because Trump and his family, they're a bunch of useful fucking idiots. I mean, did you see Lara Trump? She's got a song out now. She's doing a song with French Montana. Like, oh my God. And these are the people in charge. I can't. Yes. But I mean, that's just kind of silly and stupid. I wish that was the only problem. But that's why we need to know. They're assuming that people don't pay attention. They're not going to know. And it's all happening in plain sight under our noses. But we're here to inform people. And now you know.
Yeah, that and what kills me is why any of these average Joes think they're going to end up in the Broligarch lottery on the top of Mount Dojebag. You're not. They are not going to come knocking on your average white guy, median income household door going, hello, we would like to welcome you into the fold of all of our wealth and all of our spoils and our riches. No, y'all, you're going to be the ones that are going to be enslaved or liquefied into whatever the fuck they want to use your bodies for. They're not looking at you. They're looking beyond you. They're looking through you. Like, why are you going to throw everything away right now when you are going to be the one that is expendable to them? You have always been the ones that have been expendable to them. We all are. They're the ones who are not. So why I will never, and I would tell this all the time, I will squeeze this guy for this answer. And I know that there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, and I know that folks are like just digging in deeper, because it's like, you want to call me a stupid racist? I'll show you a stupid racist. But still, Seriously, please just listen, open your eyes and listen to what we're saying. Listen to this stuff about the bigger picture, because none of this is random. Trump is an incurious idiot. There is no way he woke up one morning and said, you know what? I want Greenland. I need that canal down there that I never once mentioned, not one time during the 4 years I was in office. These things are coming from somewhere else where they hand him a coloring book and they say, you need to say these things. We kept you out of jail. And that's it. That's it.
Yes, that's 100% right. Listen, I was at an event on Thursday, and you guys know that I was like, oh God. And it was interesting. It was interesting. It was with a lot of like kind of hoity-toity people, but a lot of them were in the tech space too. And one of them was a former cybersecurity guy for Biden. And actually, he'd been in government for a couple years, and he was in cybersecurity in the government during Trump. And he would go and have to brief, like he was part of the NSC, and they would go brief Trump. And he said, do you have any idea how many times this guy would bring up the Insurrection Act? Because we would have to, and people in the room would have to be like, no, sir, like that doesn't apply here. He was obsessed with the Insurrection Act. And this was back in 2020. So you look at what he's doing now. So they give him a couple of these like little things that he obsessed. The Insurrection Act is not a little thing. It's actually a big thing, but it's something that he focuses on while they're doing all this other stuff. So they go, here's your little toy that you could play with. You know, you can have the power under the Insurrection Act. And this time, that's why getting rid of the Postal Commission and trying to bring the Postal Commission illegally, by the way, under the Commerce Department is horrifying, because they're coming for our elections. That's why this decapitation of this purging of the Joint Chiefs, that is horrifying. Because what else did Trump obsess over in 2020? He wanted the military to get our ballot boxes. Why can't we use them? You know, and this guy that I was talking to on Thursday was like, oh no, that was real. I mean, I can remember all of us being in these briefings being like, oh my God. And they would have to literally show Trump pictures. That whole thing is true. About like he doesn't read, he has to show him kind of pictures and like big letters. That's true. And Mary Trump, who's a good friend and on the board of Seneca, she on our advisory board, like she would say, if you follow her, like Trump is not like he's not good. He wasn't a good student. So they are manipulating him to do with all of these things. They give him little shiny things to obsess over, but meanwhile they're over here doing whatever the fuck. And they only do that when people are unaware, which is why we constantly scream at Democrats to keep the pressure on. You've got to speak up. You've got to understand the nature of your enemy here, because, you know, let's compromise and work together. And I mean, in theory, but you can't compromise and work with people that are doing this kind of stuff. They're not good faith actors anymore. They're not good faith actors.
I know where that compromise comes from, because every poll I've ever seen of Democratic primary voters, and I've seen a lot.
Right. People say they want that.
People say they want that. The same way that people say they hate negative campaigns.
Right.
What works? Negative campaigns. They just do. Negative ads work. And people are, I don't like negative ads. Yeah, you may not like them, but they're effective. You may say you want compromise, but you have to, like, you can't, if you can't compromise with people who don't want to compromise with you. It's not like Trump is going to sit there and compromise with people. It's not like Vladimir Putin is going to sit there and compromise with Ukraine. Right? Like what does Trump think is going to happen in Ukraine? Does he think like, okay, even best case scenario in Trump's mind, Putin's going to get the 30% of Ukrainian land that he already occupies, Crimea, all of it, right? And then what? No, he's not going to stop until he gets a puppet in as president of Ukraine. And then that puppet is going to say, you know what I think we should do? I think we should merge with Russia.
Yeah.
And the Anschluss will be complete, just so you know.
Right.
Yes.
What happened. Yes. The Anschluss will be complete, whatever the Ukrainian word is for Anschluss.
I have to
and
balance.
Then it's Moldova and the Baltic states too, but next. But
Belarus.
Anyway.
Bye,
Yeah, Belarus.
I have to bounce. I just want I want to talk about just. I do have to bounce, but Trump is what kills me is that he heard Insurrection Act and he was like, does it make my dick bigger? Will it make me like fuck longer? Is it an Insurrection Act? Idiot! I gotta go on that now.
He thinks it's the Erection Act. Yeah,
a bigger Insurrection Act. Okay, bye guys.
I mean, leave it to Joe. Leave it to Joe to lighten it up and leave us on a funny. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Julie's dad. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, She's right. I mean, again, like this is one of those these mornings where I was like, well, there's a lot to say because there's been so much happening this week, but we can still keep it light and keep it Saturday morning.
Kalel, there's some guy, Super Kalel said you're all misinformed. MISS.
Yeah.
Yes, we are and we are informed. So thank you for
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Look,
that's almost like a good t-shirt. That's good merch, actually.
That's great merch. In fact, we might make that over at merch.
Yes. I'm writing that down, actually.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for not knowing how to spell and therefore
giving us an idea because that's what we can do. We can turn around the asininity and be empowered by it. So thanks.
Listen, here's the problem. The problem is to all the people here who are telling us that we don't get it and we're yada yada. We're crazy. We are gonna still be here for you when your Medicaid gets cut off because Trump voters predominantly are the ones using it. Places like West Virginia, places like Louisiana. Other red states are disproportionately, except for New Mexico, I think it's all red states, disproportionately use Medicaid. So when they cut that for you, we'll still be here for you. When grandma gets thrown out of the nursing home because Medicaid's not paying for it anymore, we'll still be here for you. When your farms no longer produce food to send to the rest of the world and you're going bankrupt, we'll still be here for you. So here's the problem. The problem is that as much as you guys are telling us that we're crazy and to cry harder, like Tara and I are going to be okay. Like we're fine. I don't take any money from the government. I don't need it. Like I'll be okay. I guess the one thing I'm worried about is the fact that, I don't know, my plane might fall out of the sky because they just fired everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people at the FAA.
Yeah.
But short of that, okay, whatever. Like, but again, what I keep going back to, and by the way, the number one issue, I'm just obsessed with this poll from Trump, and I have to go back to this.
Yeah.
On tax policy, the number one issue, I'm quoting directly from them. The most supported tax policy, both overall and among swing voters, is to extend the expiring tax cuts that allow working families to afford premiums for health insurance. This tax credit aimed at the working class is supported by 4 out of 5 voters. It is strongly supported by more than 1 in 2 voters. Okay, here's the thing. You know what that is? That's the ACA.
Yes, that casual observer just said, I'm worried about the ACA.
Yeah, that's the ACA.
That's Obamacare. Obamacare, you people who were like, oh, wait, what?
That's Obamacare. And so, like, you guys want it. You say you want it. Trump voters want it. If it weren't called Obamacare and called Trump Care, you guys would really, really love it. And when it's not called Obamacare, it's the number one tax policy that you guys want to keep, right? You want to be able to afford health insurance. That means you don't want your Medicaid cut because that's how you're able to go to the doctor. But that's what they're doing. And the reason they're doing it is to give tax cuts to not you, to Elon
no,
and to Donald Trump. Yep. And you guys are being played and you're the useful idiots. And, rather than telling you to cry harder when all of this hits, probably sometime in the next 6 months for you and you realize the gravity of what you've done, I'm actually going to welcome you here. I'm not going to tell you to cry harder. The same way I didn't tell you to cry harder during the Biden years when you were all, involved in your insurrection storming the Capitol. Like, it's not a question of crying harder. It's a question of snapping you out of this insanity that you're in that is truly hurting you. It is hurting you.
It's a cult.
Wake up.
It's like getting people out of a cult.
Wake up.
That's what it is.
It's like alcoholism. It's like any addiction, right? You don't want to give it up because it makes you feel good. But eventually, when you finally go through your 12 stages or whatever it is, eventually you realize that you feel better. And you'll feel better because your life will be better.
Yep.
Continue
100%. That's right. I mean, we can only, provide as much truth as we can to people. And at some point, eventually, the decision has to be made about whether you want to continue down this road or not. And, we'll be here resisting, fighting, galvanizing, empowering, inspiring, educating, informing all of those folks who want that so that we can continue to survive and work on that more perfect union. So that's our words of the day today. And as we wrap up our coffee and conversation, I was a couple minutes late. We were late today because it was my fault, and I'm going to tell you why. So those who follow me know that my husband and I and my mom were obsessed with antiquing and going to thrift shops and stuff. And this is kind of like our obsession. We're completely addicted to this. Like, it's glorious. Okay. And there is our favorite consignment shop near my house that they put this, it's called the Copper Cricket. And they put out a video every week of the new stuff that comes in. And there were a couple items that I saw that I'm like, oh my God, I have to have these. But you have to call in order for them to hold it. And they open at 10 a.m. on Saturdays. And you can't just put the request in for them to hold it. So I had to call them at 10:01 to really fast to say, hey, I would like this and this. Can you please hold it? I'll be there around 11:30 because I do this show now on Saturday mornings. I couldn't be there at 10 o'clock when they open. So I was like, I got to call them real fast. And I couldn't leave it up to my husband to do because he was like, I was like, hon, why don't you just call? And then he was like, well, I said, never mind. I'll just do it. I'll be a minute and a half late. But that's why I was late, because I was putting in a request to hold a couple of antique things that I really wanted. Do you know what one of them are? It's actually an encyclopedia of marble. There's a marble encyclopedia that my husband and I saw, and we said, oh my God, we have to get that. And so that was one of them. And then there was another really cool like cherry blossom tree thing, because of cherry blossoms in the DC area. We love to decorate our house with cherry blossom stuff. And there was a cool cherry blossom tree, like an artificial tree. They're really hard to find, and they're usually really expensive. And this, because it was secondhand, was not. So I said, I got to get the cherry blossom tree and the marble encyclopedia today. So that's what I'm about to go do when I leave here right now.
One thing about Tara, real quick before you go, which is amazing, is you actually decorate your house for like every cherry blossom season. I have 2 wreaths for my house, right? One and buy, which is the previous owner left. One normal and the other for Christmas. You think I would actually bother taking one wreath off and putting the Christmas wreath on? No, I can't even be bothered to do that. You are the complete antithesis of me. Like, what you see is what you get 365 days a year. I cannot be bothered to do anything.
Oh my gosh. Well, it makes us
for cherry blossom season, which is amazing.
Listen, last year, my mom had put all this work into making these really cool, handcrafted cherry blossom decorations. She painted things to hang on our tree out front. We have this really cool magnolia tree because they have this decorate your stoop contest for the cherry blossom festival. We didn't know. So we were like, a contest? I told you, we're like, if there's a contest, we're in. Amazing. So we decorated beautifully and we got screwed. We should have won. And I cannot believe we didn't win. The person who did win, I don't know. It was they had one for Virginia, one for DC, one for Maryland, right? They had for each state, they had the different thing. And when I don't know what they were looking at, but it was the fix was it was a racket. So my mom and I were pissed off and we said, well, you know what? We're not going to enter the contest again this year. And people were very upset about this because it was I don't know how we lost. I posted it on my Instagram last year, I think. I had to be careful because I don't want my address there, but I think you could see what we did. It was spectacular. And we lost to some crap. I don't know. But we're still going to decorate again this year.
Find that guy and kick his ass. That's all I'm saying.
I know. Well, no, it wasn't the guy's fault. It was whoever the judges were. The judges were for the contests because it was a racket. It was a rigged election. We should
storm wherever they are with their pick.
I know. We're storming the cherry blossom festival this year. No, but anyway, so yeah, we started doing that now. I mean, the cherry blossoms are just such a beautiful display in Washington. If you've never seen them, it's one of those things that you just really should experience at least once in your life. And it's like our version of the Rose Parade. So anyway, so that's what we do. You're right, Julie. We do decorate for all kinds of things all the time, and it brings us joy, and it is a reprieve from all of this. So that is the word of the day today is reprieve. Have a reprieve from all of this, things that bring you joy, so you have balance, because you still have to find joy in the little things. You don't want to get yourself burned out. And for us, it's thrift shops and antique things, and that's what we do, and decorate and teas. I collect tea sets, like antique teapots and things, and I have a beautiful set from Ukraine that I got, and I saw saw at a shop and I said, I have to get this. It's absolutely beautiful. I should start like drinking tea. I'll join you, Julie, and I'll start drinking tea on Saturday mornings and show off my tea things. But it became an obsession, and it actually started because we were at a thrift shop and I found a German teapot that was made in West Germany. And it had like a marking on it. So it was like during the time where things were divided, and it was like the US side of the Germany. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. So it really started with like a World War II reference for German China. And then from that point on, it was almost like FOMO. When we'd go into these thrift shops or go into these antique stores, I would look for these kinds of things because it was memorabilia, from a time that it was just fascinating in history, but also for my own personal tie to Germany and Bavaria. And just last week, I got this beautiful set of dishes and cups. They're like not normal saucers. They're like almost like regular sized dishes. They're hand painted with flowers, and they have like the little, like, you know, where you put your cup in, like a saucer. And they're from Bavaria, and they're numbered. Yes. And I said, oh my gosh. And they are beautiful. I bought the whole set. There was 18 plates, but only 6 cups, but I didn't care. And I gave some to my mom, and I said, Mom, you got to have these because it has a tie to Bavaria, where my family is from in Germany, and they're just beautiful. And we got them for like $15. Like, it doesn't even make any sense how beautiful these things are. So I've never seen anything like them. I should start showing some of these things when I'm
obsessed with, and my husband was like rolling his eyes because I'm obsessed with La Creuset. You know, La Creuset.
Oh, so yes, I have a friend that loves them.
Like, that's just,
oh my God, yes.
So many of them. I have like this entire house is full of La Creuset sets, and I don't ever use them. I just look at them and stare at them. They're
so pretty.
They're so pretty. They're so nice. I love it. All right, guys, we're going to go.
Anyway, so that's it. So we're going to go.
Wait. 2 things. One, join us next Wednesday at noon for Over It, live at noon Eastern. You guys can catch the replay, but we would love to have you join us, and join us again next Saturday. Michelle, I think, will be back.
She should be, yes. She'll definitely be back. We should all be back.
Yeah. So we're all going to be here, and thank you for spending your Saturdays with us. I'm on MSNBC on Amen tonight at 8 p.m. if anybody is bored and wants to do Saturday night at 8 p.m. if they have nothing better to do. And we are so grateful to all of you for spending the morning with us. Like, yes, this wonderful to be building this community with all of you together. Thank you. Have a wonderful day and weekend. And we will see you guys Wednesday and Saturday. Goodbye. Thanks.
Bye, guys. Sending good vibes to Michelle. She's flying today. She's a nervous wreck. So we're all sending loves, prayers, and good vibes to Michelle and her hubby, and safe travels back for her. So thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye.